Joining us now is Elijah Kahlenberg. He is a student at the University of Texas at Austin and the president of Atidna, which International. That's a non-profit group to create safe places on colleges for conversations between Jews and Arabs. And Elijah, do you believe that those safe places have been during this weeks-long protest movement on the campus that you've been on and elsewhere? Have you been able to create those safe spaces? I mean, do you genuinely believe that has been achieved on the whole?
Yeah, so the work of Atidna International has continued even after protests began. At UT's campus, a peaceful sit-in was organized by the Palestine Solidarity Committee last Wednesday. It was not an encampment, but it was a peaceful sit-in. And the day after, Atidna International actually hosted a dialogue session between protesters and between others who may have been wary of the protests, specifically many Zionist Jewish students. But overall, Atidna has continued the work of fostering dialogue between Jewish, Arab, Palestinian, and Israeli students. And we've also continued our efforts with peace building to bring together both our communities during such a tense time.
At Brown University, at least, the administration has agreed to hold a vote later this year on divestment. Elijah, these protests have been based on support for Palestinians in Gaza and demonstrating against the assault on Gaza. Joe Biden has just said that campus unrest hasn't changed his mind on Israeli policy, for what it's worth. These protests have also been calling for divestment, of course. Given what we've witnessed over the past 48 hours or so, and the clearing of the UCLA campus by police, same in Wisconsin, same in Columbia, do you expect this protest movement to continue, perhaps speaking very much to your personal experience where you are?
For sure. I do believe that the protest movement will continue to grow. As you mentioned, the primary objective of most protesters is divestment. There are corporations like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and others who have relationships with universities that many students find to be an ethical and moral violation. And the endowments of these universities are going towards those corporations. And what's happening is, on many of these college campuses, these peaceful protests are occurring, but they're being suppressed. At UT Austin, before our protests even began, the governor, Greg Abbott, decided to send in state troopers to suppress the peaceful protests. It was supposed to be a sit-in on the UT lawn. But when fellow students saw such suppression on campus, they might not have known that much about Gaza or Palestine, but they decided to join in on these protests because they saw the civil liberties of their fellow students being suppressed. And so because we see such crackdowns, many more students who might otherwise not be the most knowledgeable on what's occurring on the ground in Israel and Palestine will join in. And that, I think, will be the spark that allows these protests to grow bigger than anyone would have ever imagined.
And Elijah, just very briefly, do you concede that there are also, or there seems to be evidence that there have been people whose intentions are not in support of Gaza, whose intentions, in their presence on these campuses, maybe malign?
There might be individual actors, I do concede, but overall, I think the movement as a whole has been pretty clear that their efforts are simply for divestment. As a Jewish student, I was also a participant in protests here at UT Austin. And for the most part, most actors, I think, were championing that cause. On the question of anti-Semitism, I myself have not been subject to any forms of anti-Semitism during the protests. If anything, I've only seen support and love from my Palestinian brothers and sisters because we're coming together in unity for a very noble cause. But there might be individual actors from outside of campus who are coming in, who are not there necessarily even for Palestinians, who might want to wreak havoc, but those are individuals. That does not reflect the wider movement.
Elijah, good to have you. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Taking a very short